Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be taking a look at an action platformer on the PS1 that was Japan only. Yeah, that probably sums up a lot of games that I've covered on this channel, but don't worry, this isn't a repeat. Because that just goes to show you how massive the PS1 library is. But anyways, the game I'm going to be taking a look at today happens to be Hyperspeed Grandoll. And the game was developed by Kid, yes, the same company that made Pepsi Man, and it was published by Emotion Digital Software, which was actually owned by Bandai. And it came out in 1997. But the one thing that is kind of interesting with this game is that it is sort of based after an anime OVA, but the thing is, both the OVA and the game came out the exact same year. In fact, they actually got released not far apart. So the game came out in July, while the very first episode came out in August, literally a month after. So it's safe to say that the game and the anime were both made at the exact same time. And because it was only 3 episodes long, with only being 30 minutes each, I decided to check it out since I wasn't sure if I was gonna actually review it or not, and well, yeah, the anime was alright. I mean, there's not a whole lot I can say about it other than that I thought that the animation in it was pretty nice, and I really liked the art style and like the character designs. In fact, in a lot of ways, it sort of reminded me of Galaxy Fuelin Yuna. I don't know how to say that middle part, but yeah, Galaxy Yuna, that one. So while I did like all that, I did find that the actual plot and story, like as a whole, was just kind of average, and I'll get into it right now since pretty much the game and the anime story are pretty much the same, with a couple minor things that do differentiate from each other, but the same basic premise. So the main character is named Hikaru, and she happens to go to high school, and she's also like falling in love with this one dude, but she doesn't know how to confess, you know, the usual shit. But then turns out that there is actually some aliens that are invading the Earth, and then she finds out that she's actually part of a royal lineage of aliens from like a galaxy far, far away. And that's pretty much how she's able to get her magical girl powers, and then, you know, from then on she just has to fight off the aliens and, you know, and all that kind of fun stuff. So, yeah, like I said, the plot itself is pretty average and alright, you know, pretty typical stuff. But it does have some cool fight scenes, and like I said, I do like the way it looks and the animation and whatnot, so I thought it was decent at best. And yeah, that's pretty much the reason why I don't think I'm ever gonna like fully review the anime, because I felt like there was just not a whole lot to say about it, where the game, on the other hand, I feel like I can say a lot more on that. So for anyone that was really hoping for me to do like a big like video on this, well, this is the most you're gonna get out of me from this. So now, let's get moving on and start talking about the game's gameplay. So, like I said at the beginning of this video, yes, it is an action platformer, and I'd say it's actually very similar to Mega Man. So you run, you jump, you shoot, and of course you can shoot in multiple directions. You can use a grappling hook to like get by like certain objects. And also, just like Mega Man, whenever you beat a boss, you can obtain new powers and transform. And yes, you can transform to like any of these new powers at any time. And while this game is a level-to-level platformer, the one thing that is interesting is that it does have a hint of Metroidvania to it, but I wouldn't classify it as a full-fledged Metroidvania though. So the way how the level design works is that as you're going through the level, you gotta collect a key card, and thankfully it's usually just one, and then once you get past this one barrier, then, you know, you can get to move on to the boss or the next area. But after you beat a boss though, then you just go on to the next stage, and then that stage is just, you know, like another maze where you just gotta like do the same thing by collecting a key card and getting through the barrier and whatnot. So that's why I don't fully consider it to be a Metroidvania, because it's not like, you know, other ones where after you beat a boss, like they have like a huge map where you can just go all over the place. It's not like that. So that's why I do find it to be a pretty interesting take on this genre, because while I do like some Metroidvania games, sometimes I have to be in the right mood for them, because I do feel like they can be kind of confusing to navigate like all the time, where I feel like with this game, I feel like it's very manageable and not as like confusing, because it's just like, you know, you're only dealing with like one level at a time rather than just, you know, a big fucking map. Also, another thing that's worth mentioning is that you actually do get a special attack button which does blow up everything on the screen, but of course it does use up a certain amount of like your special meter bar at the bottom. So yeah, when you think about it, this game has a lot of mixtures of many different things. Like it has a little bit of Mega Man, has a little bit of Contra with the way how you shoot things, although you can't shoot in all directions, but you know, you can shoot more than just like straight in front of you though. Also has a little bit of Metroid in here, and also with the grappling hook, it does sort of remind me of a PC Engine CD game that I've reviewed before called Fawcett Armor, which I really like that game. So now, let's get talking about the game's controls. And the controls in this game are not bad, but there is a couple minor issues I do have with the game that need to be mentioned. So the button layout is easy to memorize, but, you know, I'll go over it quickly just in case. So you got X jumps, square shoots, and yes, you can hold it down to shoot. Triangle allows you to switch through your different power-ups, then you got L1, which is for special attack, R1 is for grappling hook, and then if you hold down R2, you'll stay in the same spot, but you can also like look around and also shoot in like, you know, like diagonal easier. But how do the controls feel? Well, shooting feels good, using the grappling hook is good, but when it comes to walking and jumping, I do feel they are very sensitive and can be a little bit too fast. So the thing with the walking is that, well, it's not even really walking, it's more like constantly running. Even if you tap like the D-pad to move forward an inch, your character like doesn't get like any momentum at all, it's just an automatic run. So I think it's really hard to take things slow when you can just only run only, and it does make some parts to be a little bit annoying to deal with, because sometimes you'll be going like so fast and then you'll see like an enemy come up without like you like trying to slow down to not hit it, and you'll hit it sometimes. So yeah, I do feel that it's pretty sensitive. Also, there's going to be some parts where if you need to use your grappling hook to go over some spikes, you don't want to go over the edge too much, but sometimes you'll just overshoot it and then fall into the pit of spikes. And thankfully, unlike Mega Man, the one thing that this game takes a lot of elements from, they did not take the spikes kill you in one hit, which I'm so happy about. So yeah, unfortunately, I do feel like that the running in this game is just too quick and sensitive. In fact, this is actually the one time where I really wish they made a button to like not run. Like there's plenty of RPGs out there that have a button to like just like walk instead of run, like Xenosaga has that for an example, but yet I feel like this game needs something like that, like desperately. And as for the jumping, just like the running, I also do feel like it's a little sensitive and it's really easy to like overshoot jumps. So because of this, I do feel like that the running and jumping in this game like can take some time to get used to. In fact, I remember the very first time I played this game, I like sucked complete ass at it and I was like, man, this game's really hard. But really though, I just had to get used to the controls, but it didn't take me too long, but I do think that it is still the biggest issue with the game is that I just think they just really needed to slow it down a little bit and, like I said, not make it so sensitive. So for that reason, I would say that the controls are not bad, but could be a little better. And now, let's get moving on to the other things, like the graphics. And the graphics in this game, I think are really nice. So it's a 2D game, so that's a big plus. And I really like the backgrounds in the game. I find a lot of them look really nice. There's a lot of like really nice colors, a lot of like really cool looking set pieces. And also I really like the sprites in the game. I'd say that the bosses probably look the coolest and the main characters and her like, you know, many different transformations. But the irregular enemies, well, some of them do have some cool designs to them. There's also a couple of them that are just kind of weird and, you know, not really the most memorable looking shit ever, but at least they are like well done looking for their sprites. And this game has quite a few anime cutscenes, and yes, some of them do look very similar to the shows, though I do feel that the animation in these cutscenes for the, you know, this game are a little bit more choppier than the actual anime, but despite that though, they actually did get the look right. But unfortunately, I won't play the actual cutscenes for you in this video, just in case, like, you know, Bandai has to, like, say a word about it and take the video down worldwide, because they've actually done that shit to me once before with the Golden Knight Garo game on PS2. And one small detail that I do like that I haven't mentioned yet is that I do like the little portrait and health bar in the corner. I do think that actually looks like pretty cool looking. So overall, I do like the graphics in this game. I do think it is a nice looking 2D game on PS1. And as for the game's music, I think the music in this game is quite good. So I do find it all fits like the theme of the game, like it definitely feels very futuristic, so there's a lot of like electronic music and a lot of like kind of like nice synths to it. And most of the songs I do think are pretty good, but I do feel that like a lot of them are just, you know, not super memorable, but I do think they do a good job for what they do. But a lot of them do have some nice vibes going on for them, so I do think that the OST for this one, it is enjoyable, and it does have some nice tracks, but I do think that the game's OST is at least a lot more memorable than the anime's OST. Outside of the ending and opening themes, I do think those are really good in the anime. So yeah, personally, I like the game's OST a bit better than the anime's OST, but the OST overall, I don't think it's like the most amazing shit you'll ever hear, but I do think it is enjoyable enough, and I still would consider it to be fairly underrated. And alright, now, if you want to go out and buy yourself a copy of this game, well, the cheapest I've seen it for was $122. And I can tell you right now, even at that price, I don't think it's worth it. Even though it does have a cool cover art, I mean, I'd rather just get a poster of it at that point. So now, as for my overall thoughts on Hyperspeed Grandoll, the PS1 game, is that I do like this game. I do think it is pretty fun, but like I said, I think the biggest complaint with this game has to do with like, you know, like the running and the jumping being a little bit too sensitive, which I've already mentioned like a bunch of times. Other than that, I do think it is pretty solid, and I did have some fun with the game. But also to that as well, the game also did have some frustrating aspects to it, and it was mostly due to, like I said, the controls. And one thing I haven't even mentioned yet, and it is like also like a minor complaint, is that I do think that it sucks that whenever you do die in this game, you have to start the level back from the beginning of that level, which I do think is a little bit annoying, especially that there are some levels that, well, they're not like long levels, but there are some that definitely have taken me a little bit more time than I would have liked to just get back to where I was. But thankfully, once you make it to a boss and then you die, then you just start out at the boss, which is very good. And I'm pretty sure you do get unlimited continues, because I died a shitload in this game, mostly from some of the bosses, and I've never had to like, you know, like worry about like running out of continues, so yeah, I'm pretty sure this game has unlimited continues. So yes, I do think the game is pretty flawed in certain aspects to it, and for that reason, I definitely don't think it's as good as like, you know, some of the classic series that I've compared it to, and also I do think that Fawcett Armor is a much more enjoyable game in my opinion, but even though this game is a bit more flawed than those games, I do think it does have some fun aspects to it. So it is a game that I would recommend emulating, but definitely not paying over $100 though, that's for damn sure. But if you do like games that are based after obscure animes though, this one is not bad, and definitely a lot better than some other ones in the past that I've played, but does have its rough around the edges aspects to it, which is something to keep in mind, and if you go into it like that, then there is a chance you may like this game enough. But one last thing to mention about this game before we end it is that I do think that this is something that definitely could have made like a series at itself when it comes to the video games. Like they could have made like more of these. I think that would have been really cool if they did, but of course nowadays it just seems like it's impossible. But it was interesting nonetheless. So with that being said, thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day.
You're fucked, asshole!